Hey, what's up? This is Joshua, daily video blog. I really can't tell if I'm going to get rained on today. I'm walking out of the Mississippi. It is really breezy and it's really nice. It's like perfect. It's like not that humid, but maybe I'll get sopping wet, which will be terrible and sucky. Okay. Uh, for whatever reason, at the moment, I am thinking about preconceived notions. Or an attachment to an outcome. So I think when you're doing creative work, the easiest way to get stuck, in fact, maybe the only way to get stuck, is to have some attachment to an outcome, a predetermined idea of what you need to do. And I don't mean that in a sort of simple way. For example, a client hires you, design me a poster. Knowing you're making a poster is not a predetermined notion. If I say I'm going to go make some photos right now, which I am, follow me on Instagram, MVA Joshua. If I say I'm going to go make some photos right now, that's not a predetermined notion. That's just the activity I'm going to engage in. Design a poster, take some photos, whatever. But if I'm trying to figure out which way to go here. Yeah, this will be fine. But if I then have a bunch of attachments to what that poster can be like, it needs to be good, it needs to be innovative, it needs to be clever, it needs to be smart, it needs to be cool, it needs to be better than the last thing I've made, it needs to be flashier than the last thing I made, it needs to be more like some other designer, whatever that is. That's all the stuff that introduces creative block. There's kind of two parts to it, but regardless, it's always like an attachment to an outcome. You don't like let the process take shape, and because you don't let the process take shape, the project doesn't actually have the space to take shape. So, okay, that's part one, or that's what I'm thinking about. So for whatever reason, I was thinking about sequels to movies, because blockbuster movies that were not intended as franchises, their sequels are maybe like the best notes on how attachment to an outcome can or an attachment to a judgment can really screw up a piece of art. So I was thinking about Die Hard 3, and Die Hard 3 is a great movie. Die Hard 1, or just Die Hard, is a great movie, and Die Hard is unconventional. It was super violent. It was basically a very kind of dramatic, drawn out set piece. It was kind of a disaster film. So super interesting movie. And they made a sequel to it, Die Hard 2, which is a dumb movie. It basically, the plot, the tagline could have been, "Here we go again." So just a super stupid movie. Now, oh, gross, it's very muddy from flooding earlier today. So, when they set out to make Die Hard 2, it's not hard to imagine what they did. They said, okay, instead of a building, let's do it at an airport. Let's do it the following Christmas. This time, let's have an additional set piece of a plane flying in the air with his wife trapped on it and an obnoxious newscaster. And what other obnoxious stuff? Instead of terrorists, let's have the army, and let's have there be more army than there was terrorists, and let's do a snowmobile sequence, and let's blah blah blah, and let's have Dennis Franz be a dickhead cop who hates John McClane, which makes no sense because they would love each other because they both play dickhead cops. So, oh man, it smells good over here. So that's kind of the thing. Like, you can tell that instead of writing a story, they wrote a bunch of ideas and kind of pieced them together in this asinine sequence. So, shit, down trees. So, Die Hard 3 is an actual movie again. The set pieces are concise and smart, and the scenario is realistic. They bring in Samuel L. Jackson, who obviously at that point has done a bunch of really fantastic stuff, but they don't bring him in as like a comedic sidekick. They don't bring him in to play another one of his characters. They write a character, a a conscientious bystander, basically, who intervenes in a situation that ends up making his life very difficult for the next 2 days or whatever it is. And that's what they wrote, something believable and something worth watching and something interesting. And God, man, I'm rambling. So they wrote an actual movie. They wrote something that's quasi, like, is fairly believable, as opposed to Die Hard 2, which is completely over the top and ridiculous. And if you watch the other Die Hard movies, like 4 and 5, they go back to the Die Hard 2 recipe, which is that they are these absurd things. They make no sense whatsoever. The way they pick the co-stars is based on marketing, not on story. Basically, they don't write movies. They try to write a marketing plan and then craft a movie around the marketing plan. And as such, they don't really make great movies. Luckily, they have the budgets for big explosions. I think that if you want to make something great, you have to sit down and actually do the thing from the beginning, from the right point. A good contrast to a Die Hard sequel is the Inglourious Basterds prequel. So Quentin Tarantino said that he was working on a prequel to Inglourious Basterds. And he said, what kind of a prequel? It's about black Civil War soldiers behind enemy lines. And they're sort of trapped there. So they're in a dangerous, precarious situation. That movie never emerged. Instead, what happened is Django Unchained came out of that process. Because, in as much as I can tell, Quentin Tarantino actually writes the movie. He has the idea, I need to write a movie, or he has the project he's going to do, and he has the initial idea for what he's going to do, the impulse, but then he lets the process go where the process goes, and as such, we get this incredibly rich body of work with pretty much no bullshit. There might be things you like, there might be things you don't like, but nobody could ever look at his body of work and not say that there is a distinctive voice or stamp on every single movie. And I think that's because Quentin Tarantino approaches things from the perspective of, I need to write a story. And you have that initial impulse and you do it. And I think you can apply that same thing to anything. If I come out here in the woods right now and I'm trying to make a very specific picture, maybe I will succeed. More than likely, the thing I see in my head will not materialize. But if I come out here and go, I want to take some pictures of some green stuff, and then maybe I see something that's not green and that is interesting, or maybe I end up down by the water and I'm suddenly interested in roots of trees that go into the water, well, that's cool too, and maybe I'll make something better. This sort of slavish dedication to a single idea or a single vision is a good way to rob myself of the ability to make discoveries, to make the best art that I can make. I think this applies to anything. I think bad graphic design 90% of the time has less to do with its craft or its ideas than that the central motivator is, I need to do something cool, or I need to do something that looks like it's this, or I need to do something that's like this other person did, or I need to do something slick. Instead of having a process that you can trust, start the project and move through the process. I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest difference maker between quote unquote good art and bad art, as I see it, is that the good art is going to be the result of a good process, and the bad art is going to be the result of either no process or a broken process, or these attachments to an outcome. That was kind of a long one. Thanks for sitting with me. If you have any questions or comments, leave them. And yeah, I don't know. Have a good one.